Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. For council time, we'll start with the roll call.
Counselor Young,
Here.
Counselor Belcott,
Present.
Counselor Fuentes,
Here.
Counselor Little,
Here.
and Chair Marshall.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, please. Under 5.1 new business, the April 15th council meeting. And then to add that one and then remove 9.2. It's the second executive session on the agenda.
Okay, got it. Then we'll move right on to public comments on the agenda items only today. 3-minute limit, and I see we have someone in the audience.
Carmen De Leon.
Hi, my name is Carmen. I also go by Mello. But, and so it says right here, the minutes of the 12th. And on the minutes of the 12th is when we, got that fiasco going of last night. You know what I'm saying? And it's just really disappointing to me that when Cotlaw Center, Ridgefield, Washougal, Battleground, and Camas all say no, you seem tone deaf. Nobody wants the light rail. Everybody wants a bridge. Great, get a new bridge, but not a new billion-dollar project that can be solved with buses. And by the way, why do people in the Fourth Plain area even care when supposedly the buses or the light rail is only supposed to go to downtown? So how's that going to affect Fourth Plain? I don't get that. Overstretching your boundaries, dude. You can get an express bus from Fourth Plain, what is it called? Fourth Plain and Andreessen, bus right over to Portland. And that would save you the max that you don't have on Fourth Plain, supposedly, unless the bigger picture is give them an inch and give them a mile. So they've got 2 light rails. Okay, now we need 3. Now we need 4. Now we need light rail in Hazeldale. And if it's so safe, why do they have their own police? Why have people been stabbed on light rail? And I don't even want to talk about it because we even had a meeting in that back room. The money's leaking. Where's the money leaking? Into Portland, because everybody goes to Portland to work, goes to Portland to buy. And here you are inviting Portland into Vancouver. Come on over on the max, work in Portland, pay them more taxes, but live here and cost us police and schools and everything else. Because, hey, we just want to subsidize Portland's failing C-Tran or whatever light rail, which I've said is always empty unless there's a football game. I'll talk about that later. Anyways, that wasn't the only thing on my list. They talked also about cutting the forests, and I've already told, well, it's hard to talk to you when you're not listening because I saw the legislator thing. And nobody's talking about helping our president deport illegals who have committed felonies in this state. I don't know why anybody would want to import criminals and keep them here. If you have any reason to get rid of a criminal, you should send them out of the country running. Why isn't anybody helping our president? I looked at your legislative agenda. Nothing. The bill that I helped push, the House Bill 3551 in Oregon, which mandates deportation, automatic felony, automatic deportation. Do you love your constituents enough to provide them the safety of knowing that if an illegal, and by the way, my parents were legally in this country and they learned the language.
Thank you. Anyone online?
You have one.
Okay.
Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please state your name for the record and go ahead with your comment.
Good afternoon, Kimberly Goheen Elvin, a citizen of Clark County, Washington, USA. I'd like to not have anybody, you guys forget that La Center also does not want light rail and I'll be speaking to the minutes. This is an agenda that Vancouver and Portland, both sanctuary cities, want to carry through with. One big reason will be the love of money. Already there's money. How are they going to account for the hard-earned tax dollars already spent on this agenda, despite we, the people, that have spoken up? And it was a wonderful historical event for me last night to witness patriots actually following what our forefathers warned us to do, and that is to assemble when our government becomes dangerous. In my my opinion, there are 3 members that should be recalled immediately. So that's what we'll probably be working on. So I am going to talk a little bit about that because Chair Marshall, and there's a misprint in here on your minutes, second page minutes of March 12th, on the first paragraph, that Chair Marshall will brought back in CTRAN's April board meeting. It should be bring back to the meeting. So to me, that is absolutely decisive measure to take out we the people and go against what we are. I absolutely think that's, excuse me, worth recalling. Actually, Council Little also, or excuse me, Fuentes approved to remove Councilmember Belcott, and as you can see, we are not happy about that at all. So we're going to probably change that, right? Also, America 250, you'll be talking about today, 250 years of working for freedom, life, and liberty. And so I ask we the people of Clark County, Washington, USA, to make known that this council and Vancouver Council to absolutely have a celebration of Independence Day with grand fireworks at the Fort Vancouver fort there in Vancouver. Vancouver is a sanctuary Marxist city. We all know it. You know it now. You have been made clear of this. And we, the people, want our 4th of July fireworks brought back on 4th of July this year to celebrate our freedom. That's what this is about, America 250. However, if you really read the fine print on this, it's put out by, I consider, sanctuary counties, of which this is. You read the small print and stuff, and these are people that really aren't patriotic to the core. They actually are undermining, and there's ways that they're doing it. You just have to pay attention and look. But there's a warning to the people. We want the...
Okay, thank you. Your time is up. Anyone else?
That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to old business, I'll entertain a motion to accept the March 12th, 2025 minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections? I should have asked that a little earlier. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay, then on to new business, April 15th.
Yes, so it was just brought to my attention. So April 15th is our monthly nighttime council meeting. It appears that CTRAN has actually changed their meeting date to that same evening. So their meeting starts at 5:30, ours is at 6. They don't have the ability to change it. I did reach out to CTRAN. So there's a couple options for council. We can move forward with our meeting, just knowing that we have to have the 3 counselors who are not on CTRAN to be here for a quorum. And then the 2 counselors on CTRAN can attend CTRAN and continue with that meeting. We can have that meeting in the morning instead, or we can find another date, a date and time within the month.
Okay, Counselor Young?
I think for efficiency purposes, if we're still going to have 3 counselors here, I would just assume do that. But I also would like everybody to be able to see the agenda for that day, because if there's something that they wish to be there for, then we should reschedule our meeting.
Okay, I don't have the agenda items at this time, and I won't have them in probably till a week before.
Probably should reschedule then.
Okay, there's one for rescheduling. Others?
Reschedule.
Reschedule during the day on the 15th or a different nighttime or a different day?
During the day is fine. I mean, yeah, during the day. Okay.
During the day is fine for me as well, that day.
Okay, I have something I can reschedule and I could make it on the 15th.
Okay, so we will reschedule for the 15th at 10 a.m. And we'll make sure that the public is notified of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Counselor reports.
I have a report.
Yes, go ahead, please.
And bear with me, this may take 5 minutes. And this is only speaking for myself. So after hearing all the public comments last night and thinking about the facts of the case and hearing Counselor Belcott's explanation of of her understanding of how votes go in committees. I want to explain my vote on that and propose some solutions. First, my decision was not premeditated in any way. After the motion was made, I really only had seconds to decide what I was going to do. And in that time, these were my thoughts. We were asked to provide direction to two counselors on CTRAN for an important vote. And so we deliberated, we discussed, it was a difficult decision, and we made a vote. Because I assume that we don't make decisions on a whim or for fun, and never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd spend so much time on a vote and then not have it not be binding, the majority decision. So I assumed both counselors had to vote accordingly. And more importantly, I assumed we had clear policies on what happens in that situation. I was wrong on that. So now, after hearing what Counselor Belkat has explained of how this has happened in the past and what her understanding of it is, and that we do not have clear policies, as I understand, I feel that I voted in error. So before I propose solutions, I do want to say a couple things about the 4-1 vote that we had on February 26th, because I think this is really important. From hearing the comments on both sides last night, I think the public decides thinks this was a simple decision, a yes or no decision on light rail. To me, it was not in any way. If you go to the video discussion that we had, it was quite a long time, and there's been 88 views. I just checked it. So not a lot of people are looking at our video discussions. But if you look at that, you will have heard a presentation on how many billions of dollars, $5 billion of bridge funding that were at stake in this one vote. $4 billion that we've already received and another billion that's on its way. We were told that this vote could potentially risk that $5 billion for bridge funding. So in my mind, the vote was about the bridge. Also, the decision on light rail was actually made in 2022 when light rail was decided as the preferred alternative on the bridge proposal. And the county actually, unfortunately, didn't have a vote on that at the time, but that was the preferred alternative, and all funding, all the 5 billion plus, has been dependent on that as the preferred alternative. So just to clarify what a future CTRAN vote would mean, a no vote would mean that never on our side of the river would voters pay any amount of the operating costs for light rail. A yes vote would mean that CTRAN may propose some funding solutions that come out of our taxpayer base to pay up to the $20 million in operating costs. It doesn't say it will, and it also doesn't appropriate that funding right there. It just says that they'll have options, some of which, as I understand, will be up to voters later. So that just kind of explains a little bit about what was going on in my head when I was deciding that 4-1 vote for my vote. So I have a couple solutions, and I would propose that we make very crystal clear in our rules and procedures on how these decisions are made. And I know that Kathleen is researching this and has already found other cities like Battleground that has very clear language on when a vote like this happens, it is binding on the person on that committee. So I would want our language to so for us to propose language that would be considered and we would vote on, I would like it to say something like this. If a counselor asks for direction for their committee, or the council directs a counselor on a committee for a vote, then the majority vote is binding on that counselor. And then I would want to include language in there that happens if someone decides not to do that based on the language. And then if they don't follow the vote, I would want to make provision in there that their vote is automatically invalidated and the alternate steps up to vote at that moment. Now, in addition to that, I'd like to further complicate this. I'd like to make a motion that the decision on February 26th, if this new language passes, would be retroactive to that decision. And in addition, I would like to have clear language in our bylaws that has a removal process for committees as well as an addition process. All the nonprofits that I've ran or been on the board of, there's really clear language on how you add a member or how you subtract a member. And I would like to have it be very clear on that there's the authority to not only designate someone on a committee, but remove them. And then finally, I'd like to do I don't know what it is, I think it's called a motion to reconsider the vote that we made to remove Councilor Belcott from the C-TRAN committee. So with all that said, I don't know if I can make motions right here, right now. Can I? Okay. I have two motions to put forward. And if I'll put one forward so we can discuss.
I have some comments before we
Oh.
motion for anything, because that's usually when we discuss prior.
I-
So
it-
that would be modifying.
I
the-
think he can go forward with his motion, and I would just leave it to Counselor Little to see if there's a second, and then we can discuss. Sometimes we do it the other way, but let's just see if there's a second.
Of course you would. Of course you would.
Okay, so I'm asking for a second. Should I propose?
It's not clear what your motion is
Okay.
at this point, so let's go one motion at a time, one motion, 1 second, then discuss.
Okay, that would be perfect. I would like to propose that we put forward for notice for a public decision on adding clear language to our rules and procedures that says if a counselor asks for direction, if a counselor on a committee asks for direction from the full council, or the full council directs a council member representing them on a committee, then the majority vote is binding on that person when they go to that committee and make a vote. And then if they do not follow this vote, their vote is automatically invalidated and the alternate steps in to make that vote. And can I continue with this? Okay, that is motion number one.
Okay, do people understand the motion? Go ahead.
Wait till there's a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion for purpose of discussion.
So Chair, if I can,
Yes,
Um,
please.
I was already provided direction from council to look at other jurisdictions' language as well as generic language as Counselor Little is proposing, and that's coming before you next Wednesday during council time. And then based on that discussion and direction, if council wants to move forward with updating the rules of procedure, then we'll notice a public hearing for that.
Okay, that's good information. That was my understanding as well. Counselor Belcott, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was about to mention that would be a public hearing on a bylaws. And it's not even bylaws, it's our rules and procedures.
Yeah, we don't have bylaws.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rules and procedures. Yes, so that would be modifying our rules and procedures, which I would like to remind the council that has never, ever, ever been a part of council rules and procedures. Like I've said before, you would be tying the hands of representing your constituents, which why even get voted in for your district in the first place? That makes no sense to me, to tie our hands. That you all have heard my opinion on this over and over again. I I think this is a very bad idea that you're doing this, that you're even entertaining this. So, I've already made a stance as far as this whole situation goes, and I am seeking legal counsel. So, thank you.
I guess my comment would be, I think we did provide direction for the county manager to come back after looking at what the other cities do. Give us a chance to compare those things and discuss it next Wednesday. So that would be my preference.
Yeah, that's,
And I think your thoughts can be included in that deliberation.
yeah, that would be great. So, I will not have a vote on that because we are going to consider it next week.
Well, it's been moved and seconded, and I think we can continue with deliberations.
Or the movement could withdraw the motion.
Okay, so I withdraw that motion number 1.
Okay,
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 I have
Motion.
motion number 2.
go ahead.
Okay, so a motion number 2 would be in that same meeting, I would propose that we also consider language in our rules and procedures of how to remove a council member from a committee in addition to the current language that we have already on how we add a council member to a committee.
So your motion would be to have language to add someone or to remove someone from the rules and procedures?
Well, we already have the add, so it would be for someone to be removed, the process to be clarified in the rules and procedures.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Belcott, your hand's up.
That is a charter change. I don't believe, legal counsel, can you weigh in on this? I don't believe that can be added to rules and procedures.
I respectfully disagree, Counselor. I think the rules of procedure very typically, as I think Counselor Little stated, the rules of procedure of similar organizations, usually with selection, they also have verbiage about removal. And I don't think that is a charter sort of level.
And just to clarify, I'm not saying this is a removal process from our dais, from the
No.
council. This is for appointment to a committee. Yeah. Or
Got
board.
it. I'll add that to my lawyer questions. Thank you.
Sure.
The county manager had a
No, I
comment.
just for clarification, so in the rules of procedure in Exhibit 1, Code of Professional Conduct, there is provisions in there about counselors being removed from boards and commissions based on that specific provision. I just want to clarify that that's going to be outside of that, correct? The proposal.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Young?
I was just going to add, the rules of procedure are kind of like a catch-all for things that the charter doesn't directly address, in how we proceed as a council and all of the things that we do. So I'm trying to get a little bit of clarification real quickly on your motion. So the motion was to discuss how and when a process would be for removal of a counselor from a board or commission. Is that what your motion was?
Yeah, I guess in this situation, we don't even need a motion because we suggest, like we did for this previous topic, for language to be considered at next week's meeting to present language that might be used in other jurisdictions about how to remove a council member from a committee or board.
And would that be specifically regarding when there's a collective voice of the council and the board representative votes contrary to that, or would
This
it
would
be
be
just
just
general?
a general process that would probably say something like a member can be removed from a committee if there is a majority vote.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so is this still a motion or is this general direction to the county manager that if three of us are agreeable to that, it will proceed?
Yeah, I prefer the general direction. Thumbs up.
Okay, so motion withdrawn.
Motion withdrawn, general direction request for this.
Okay, I would agree to toss it into the hopper, and
Yeah.
I think some look at how this comports with the charter would be good, and acknowledging that Counselor Belcott is opposed to this. Okay, are there other counselor reports?
I had a final motion.
Go for it.
And this again is because I don't feel like I had grounds for the decision that I made on the vote to remove Counselor Belcott from the committee. I believe in her understanding of how it's worked in the past, that that she was free to vote her conscience. And so I would like to reconsider that vote. Is that the correct process? Okay.
You can't
right.
reconsider once you're past the
Okay.
meeting at which it occurred. You could make a motion to rescind. Which, Have
Which
this-
just removes it from happening?
yep. That's
Okay,
pretty much the effect.
Okay, I make a motion to rescind that motion. The motion to,
The action.
the action that was made to remove Counselor Belcott from the C-Tran committee.
Okay, is there a second? Looks like it fails for lack of a second.
And Counselor Belcott can't second that because,
I don't see why Counselor Belcott would not be able to second that.
okay.
I second that.
Okay, that's a little delayed, but any further discussion?
I would just say that, and I appreciate you bringing this forward. This has been a less than stellar situation that has arisen in the county with this. Part of this, I think that, and I understand your intent behind this, and I certainly understand Councilor Belcott's desire behind this. But to me, it's not just about what was written down. It was about, some of the misleading statements that were made. To me, it was very clear when there was a direction, and if there was a disagreement at that point in time of whether that is even allowed per our rules of procedure for the charter, that should have been addressed at that meeting, but it was not.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right?
Opposed, no?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, 3 no, 2 aye. The motion fails. Are there other counselor reports?
Chair.
Yes, please.
And this would kind of go along with policy updates, but I wanted to separate it a little bit. The public comment that we had last night from individuals in the community that were advocating for disability, for individuals with disability. I think that maybe we can have that discussion during policy updates, but I would like to look again at possible direction on the letter that we had received from our advisory group.
I had brought that up with Jordan, and I believe he'll include that in his report. So thank you
Great,
for
thank
that.
you.
Other counselor reports? Okay. Work session requests.
Public Works just has a request at the end of April. We'll work on the timing, and this is on the bridge preservation program and load restrictions. They will be having a public hearing, so they want to present a sample ordinance language that would be updating code to council to get your feedback prior to the public hearing.
Sounds good. How do people feel about that? Yes? Thumbs up? Okay. Policy updates. So we'll turn to you, Jordan.
All right. Good afternoon, Council. For the record, Jordan Bogey, Policy Analyst. I've got a few things for you today, some of which I knew last week when we put the agenda together, and a few items under 8.4 Other as well. The first thing I'd like to chat with you all about is America 250. We've talked about this a little bit before, but America 250 is a celebration of 250 years since 1776 and the Declaration of Independence that kicked this whole democratic experiment off. And I had a chance to chat with Brad Richardson at the Clark County Historical Museum and talk a little bit about what kind of role the county might be able to play in supporting the efforts around America 250. So the first thing that we need to keep in mind is that there is no money for this, either from the feds or from the state government. And so what any activities that we do ideally will be sort of piggybacking on, parades, events, things that are already happening in the community on an annual basis or regularly, where we can put kind of a America 250 spin on it or integrate America 250 into those events. And I know from my conversations with Brad that the Clark County Historical Museum is working on an exhibit related to America 250, and they're already having some conversations about connecting to local businesses about their history, how the words of the Declaration of Independence connect with people's own stories, what the Declaration means to them. I know some work has been done connecting with the Sons of the American Revolution, for instance, and some conversations have already taken place about putting together a master calendar across the county of different activities that are going on. It sounds like the most helpful thing from the county would be to play kind of a convening role in helping bring some of these different organizations, historical museums, societies together to talk about some of the planning for next year. Probably mid to late summer would be a time for those conversations to really get going. And so there was some interest in asking, and council doesn't have to make a decision today if you want to think about it, but if there were a counselor or two that were interested in participating in the America 250 committee and kind of taking a bit of a leadership role in helping to advocate and organize for some of these events, it sounded like that would be helpful for the process here around America 250. And so that's kind of the update and the request for council. And so I'll open it up for any questions or thoughts, or if you'd like me to come back after you've had some time to think about whether you'd like to participate, that is totally fine as well.
Okay, council, thoughts?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, I like the idea of including a couple counselors in a committee to bring people together and to figure out how we can celebrate 250 years. I'd still like to take some time to think about it. My plate is pretty full. I don't know if I could take a specific leadership role within the committee, maybe some sort of supportive role, but I certainly want to hear everybody else's thoughts and potentially wait a couple of weeks to make the final decision.
Other thoughts? I'd be interested as well. And I don't know, Jordan, will there be more detail that could come together in a couple of weeks about what this might entail? I guess specifically for the council time involvement.
Yeah, I mean, I think my understanding is probably not a huge lift because, as you said, the county is probably going to mostly play a convening role. And so just trying to organize a lot of the events that are already happening across the county, right? So, I know, for instance, Ridgefield has a big 4th of July parade. I know, the Sons of the American Revolution have a chapter here that's pretty active. the Daughters of the American Revolution. I know they came and did that proclamation last year. And so we've got some different folks that are already engaged, but I think the main work will be just sort of helping to try to coordinate all of the different events and see how we can work together, develop a master calendar, and then just generally let folks in the community know that this is happening, and helping spread the word and get folks excited. So that is, I think, going to be the main activities related to this group, but I can definitely follow up and get some more information in a couple of weeks and bring it back if council wants to think about it a little bit.
That sounds good.
Chair.
Yes.
I can see a couple of counselors participating in some sort of parade, right? I think you mentioned a couple of them, Jordan. Is there an expense attributed to that? Because I know that we're very conscious about spending any money at all. Walking generally doesn't cost money, but generally there might be a fee to participate. Is that correct?
I've never participated in a parade, so I don't know if there is a fee. We can look into that. I don't, unless there was like a PR campaign or some other contribution that would cost money, I wouldn't think, doing resolutions, being in a parade, publicly, doing press releases on it to help support the getting the word out there, that is just staff time. So it's not a additional cost.
Go ahead, Councilor Young.
Chair, I would add too, I mean, if there's an entrance fee to a parade, I think we could take that out of the council budget. I mean, it's very small budget, but we really also are very prudent with that budget. We don't use it much.
We have a
So-
budget.
We might be able to take it out of our own pockets too. So I think whatever the cost might be would be nominal, and I think it'd be a great community event. And I know small cities, most of them have small museums or parades. So the more we talk about it, the more I like the idea.
And Chair, and there is a fee, because I know I did the Hazel Day Parade for my campaign. I didn't pay the fee, my campaign did, so I don't remember how much it cost. I don't think it was significant. Of course, we had a couple of other costs to take care of, but it wasn't, again, significant. So if we can figure something out, I think that's a good way. Maybe we ride on the sheriff's car or something. Just Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think anything we can do without costing much money to support this great effort is important. I mean, Clark County, I just learned a little bit about the history, but it used to be spelled differently and much bigger than this county. And so I'd love to tie in some of our deep history into this celebration.
Okay. Well, come back in a couple weeks and ask us again which counselors might be interested in participating. And if you have additional information, that'd be great to share that as well.
Just want to know if we ride in the sheriff's car, are we going to be in the front seat or the back?
I just note that there's fire trucks out there. There's a number of vehicles that we could tap into. Okay, good enough. Legislative updates.
All right. Thank you, Council. So a couple legislative updates for you today. So the first is I testified in front of the House Finance Committee bright and early on Tuesday morning related to Senate Bill 5696, which, as you'll recall, is the bill that would allow for use of mental health sales tax dollars for new facility capital construction. And I was joined by the bill's prime sponsor, Senator King, and Commissioner Lindy from Yakima County. And everyone was supportive of the bill that testified. And as you'll recall, the bill did pass unanimously through the Senate. So I feel good about that bill's prospects for passing, which would allow for capital support for the bridge shelter. So we'll keep you up to date on that, but that was a positive development. Next item. Oh, sorry.
Jordan, when is it going up for a vote at the House?
I don't believe that a vote has been scheduled yet. That hearing was just Tuesday morning. And so I can look.
Worst case scenario at the end of the session, which is roughly about a month from now, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. And
Okay.
it hasn't been scheduled for a vote yet.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Yes, please keep us updated on that. That would be something that I would be interested in providing testimony at if it's available.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will keep you guys apprised of that.
Let me just say thank you, Jordan. I think it was probably worthwhile to give them a real world experience that we have down here. So appreciate it.
Happy to do it. The next bill I'd like to bring forward for your consideration today. So, Council, I emailed you about this a couple days ago with some updates, but this is House Bill 1258, and it is related to emergency services and how specifically 911 dispatch is managed. This bill specifically targets, as in literally the bill is written to say it only impacts counties east of the Cascades with a population over whatever number. It's about Spokane County and the city of Spokane and a conflict they're having around 911 dispatch services. And basically, those are typically managed at the county level. The municipal level, they're having a disagreement about how to pay for these services. And the city of Spokane would kind of like to strike out on their own. Cressa is particularly worried about this bill, as are other emergency management organizations that are run at the county level across the state, because there's a fear that even though this bill is very narrowly targeted to Spokane County and the city of Spokane, that it could be amended in future sessions to essentially allow for any city to kind of break away and receive a portion of funding to run their own 911 dispatch center versus retaining it at the county level, and then having an interlocal agreement or something for services as is currently done. And so I wanted to raise that to you all just for your consideration and to see if there was interest in taking a position on this bill. Cressa is strongly opposed to this because they're worried that in future sessions, this could be expanded to include Clark County.
Jordan?
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, I'm trying to understand, the fear at this point is that it would be done here, but why is that a fear? What would the impacts be if it were applicable to Clark County?
Yeah, so I'll share some of the notes that were sent with me, and you all have this in your email as well. And so the bill would direct how the 911 excise tax needs to be split at the local level, and so codifying how 911 funds should be allocated, even just for a single county, will destabilize local agreements that make 911 services work across the state. Their position is also that the bill doesn't align with the statutory purpose of the 911 excise tax. And some of these regional emergency management groups are concerned that the state's 911 office also hasn't been consulted on the impacts of this approach. So there might be some unintended consequences. For example, the bill captures both the local and the state portion of the 911 excise tax, which forces the distribution of state funds, which has an impact. There's the locally retained excise tax on 911 calls, and then there's the state portion of this bill as well. Let's see if there's a couple other items in here that were kind of some key points. Really, it's they see it as a local issue, and so the state taking basically what should be agreements that are done between counties and the cities within them, and basically forcing a state solution on the problem. And basically, they think this is going to create some more strain on an already underfunded revenue source. And so those are some of the reasons why they're opposed to it, and they wanted council to consider taking a position here.
Kathleen, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Cressa board, and I actually just talked to their director yesterday, and I'm sure he'd be more than happy to come in and chat as well. But having a fragmented system would be difficult. It's better to have a regional system for 911. Part of the user fees is based on, at least with our contract, we have a little bit for emergency management, but then it's dispatch fees. So for like the sheriff's office, MVPD, fire. So having that fragmented system is not helpful. And also the funding And I'll be bringing this up within the next couple of weeks as we're talking about law and justice funding options, because that excise tax does go to help support capital and operations, which could then actually provide funding back to the county and the cities. It's a countywide vote, where that money would come in, pay for radios, pay for, the infrastructure needed. And then the money that we pay for that infrastructure would be returned to the county. So for us, it would be about $2.5 million that would come back into the general fund that's supporting it. But the system as a whole would be fragmented, and we don't want to do that with emergency response. But if council would like as well, I know Dave would be more than happy to come in and chat with you in more detail if you'd like.
So my initial thought is I don't like to think about this as jurisdiction versus jurisdiction, but what is overall good for the people that live in the county. And to me, it sounds like and when you're talking 911 services, a fragmented system does not make sense to me.
And I think I heard, and I don't know if Jordan, but with Spokane, and I might have them backwards, but I think they kept police dispatch within the city. The rest of the dispatch went to their regional, but now the city's trying to take fire. And because of the way that the law is written, it's like you can't take away dispatch work from the regional. So it's like they're putting in an extra step in there. It has to go through dispatch, then to the city, then it actually gets called out. So there's definitely an impact on response.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Jordan, are other counties getting involved? And if you already mentioned this, sorry, what are the chances that this bill is going to move?
So part of the reason, it's a great question, Counselor. So part of the reason why this is coming up now is because it wasn't clear that this bill would move forward, but it has passed the House. It passed 56-39, so it was not a unanimous vote, but it has passed the House and is now in the Senate. And I think folks are realizing that this is now that it's really moving forward. That's kind of the impetus for the timing of taking some action and really kind of raising the alarm for the regional emergency management folks.
Thanks. And have other counties voiced concerns about this bill that you know of?
I haven't heard that specifically, but let me check right here. So it looks like all the folks who testified on this bill previously when it was in the House were Spokane or Spokane County folks, or maybe some emergency management organizations. But it looks like all the testimony in the House was limited to being in Spokane or Spokane County, as far as I can tell.
And I know there was some written testimony. It may not be online yet, but with the association that represents the dispatchers and emergency management throughout the state, like we have different professional organizations like WASAC, they have written opposition to this.
Other comments? Oh, go ahead.
Just kind of question though, like what would our messaging be? Because it seems kind of odd that we would say, we're opposed to this because we have a fear that it might be expanded later that would affect us. I don't know quite what our messaging would be on it.
That could be the message. Other comments?
Chair, and since you sit on the board, Kathleen, to clarify, CRESA covers all of Clark County, or does it go beyond the county?
It's Clark County.
Just Clark County.
Yes.
And the concern is if this bill passes, and I hate for us to meddle in other jurisdictions, decision making, but I get, where CRESA's concern is. So the concern is that if this bill were to pass in the future, the city of Vancouver could say, we're going to go on our own, right? Is that? Oh, okay. Yeah, and I can appreciate the concern as well. We're not a big county as it is, a little bit over $500,000, so resources are limited. And I think it was somebody mentioned, it was IT that mentioned earlier that they provide services because of the infrastructure that we built, because of the resources, the technology that we have. They provide services to smaller jurisdictions, right? That if they were to kind of go on their own, they wouldn't have the ability to provide the services that they can with the support of the county. And so that's the concern. I can appreciate Chris's concern where if it were to get fractured, then it does limit the ability to provide services to our community members. So I would support sending a letter.
Yeah, and we can, Jordan and I can reach out to Dave and get something drafted that's from the council, but, you know, hitting points that the council's perspective and making sure that we're in lockstep with him.
Okay, does that sound good to people? I did have just a follow-up question. Is the city of Spokane and Spokane County, are they both in support of this?
No. So the city of Spokane is in favor of this as they try to separate the services, but Spokane County has been opposed, as I understand it.
Good to know. Thank you for that. And yeah, I think it would be good to draft a letter. Do we have time for that letter to come back to the council to take a look at? And also, I think it would be good for David representing Cressa to brief the county on how things are going. And yeah, if people haven't toured Cressa, that I would recommend that as well.
Can we set that up? A tour of Cressa, at least for me. I don't know about other council.
Absolutely. They'd be more than happy to do a tour.
Thank you.
Anybody else want a tour?
Yeah, I would be interested in that as well.
Okay. So Michelle, I know you're watching. It's Councilor Young, Fuentes, and Little. Councilor Belcott, would you like a tour of Cressa?
No, I already have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I've already toured as well, so that'll be good. Great. Okay. Anything else, Jordan?
Thank you, Council. So one more item under 8.2 legislative updates, and that is just to give you a quick update on the budget forecast. So, you know, the state releases annual budget forecasts that came out yesterday, I believe. And it looks like the state is looking at a deficit of about $13 billion over the next 4 years, based on current projections, which is similar to what, you know, that folks had been expecting. For the next biennium, they are projecting potentially around 500 million or so less collected in revenue than was previously projected. And so that is part of that. Now, they did note some of in the economic forecast documents, there is a lot of uncertainty with these given, you know, federal government cuts and some of the things that are going on there, and some of the tariffs that have and have not been implemented at various points and maybe in the future. So there is still some uncertainty with the forecast. But I think the upshot for us as we look toward advocating for the county and our projects and funding for those is that we'll probably continue to be playing defense for the time being, given the challenging fiscal environment at the state level. And so that was kind of what was expected to come down, and that is what came down. But I just wanted to give council a brief update that had come through. And if you're interested in learning more, you can find more information on the state revenue website. They posted some of these different documents, and there was a presentation with some different slides showing projected revenue over the next 2 and 4 years that folks can take a look at if you're interested.
Okay. Moving on.
Moving on, 8.3, so 1406 funds. I thought I might have a little bit more of an update for council. This is just going to be a brief one. I had a chance to meet with the finance team last week to just talk a little bit about the 1406 affordable housing funds. As a reminder, this is a remittance on a portion of the state sales tax that we get back to support affordable housing. We get between $700,000 and $900,000 typically in a given year. It sounded like we raised a little over $900,000 this past year in revenue for 1406 funds. And council had previously expressed interest in looking at bonding against these funds to see what options might be available for supporting affordable housing in the county. There are a couple of tricky things that we're working through, and I'm still talking to some folks and thinking about some of which includes this legislation is sunsetted. So 20 years was how long we would get this sales tax credit remittance, which started in 2019. And so we have 14 years left of getting this revenue. Typically, bonds are at least a 20-year process. And so you could potentially, prorate that money. So you have, the life of the bond is 20 years. You're getting 14 years of revenue. We calculate out what that would be. It looks like we could raise somewhere between $10 and $15 million if we bonded against these funds. That is similar to the amount that we would raise over the next 14 years through this funding mechanism, but we could get it up front potentially as a lump sum. So that's kind of the state of play of what I've found out around the use of these funds. I'm still looking into it. So I think I'll have some more updates for you later about some potential options. But I just wanted to give council a quick update about where we stand in terms of the potential of bonding, and I'll work with our finance folks as I get a little bit further down the road to develop a little bit more comprehensive projections. These are just kind of back of the napkin analysis that Mark had done when we were chatting last week.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
I am open to either possibility on this. What I want to do is do something that's most effective as possible. This is where I really wish we had an affordable housing advisory board that could work through this issue for us. One thing though that I would hope that you can get us information on is the difference in administrative expense between those two options. So how much is it going to cost us to have like a board that would meet and go through RFPs? How much would that cost and how much would that consume versus if we were looking at some affordable housing project that VHA or someone else presented to us and we decided to fund that project? So if you could look into that, I think that would be helpful for our deliberations on that.
I can certainly include that in my review.
Oh, your volume has slacked off.
Oh.
I can hardly hear you. Oh, there you go. Maybe it's just
Okay,
getting
can you hear me?
closer.
I was just saying I will include that in my review.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, we've moved on to other.
All right, so I do have a few other items as well for you. The first is the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. As you'll remember from public comment last night, and then as Councilor Young had brought up during council reports, the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board has requested that council consider taking action to strongly oppose projected Medicaid cuts at the federal level. And so, that could take the form of a resolution or a letter to our congressional delegation or other potential activities if council is interested. Those are probably the two big ones to express council's opinion. So we just would raise that as it's been requested and see if that's something council would be interested in moving forward with doing.
I would be supportive of that. Others?
Chair.
Yes.
Both a resolution and a letter to our congressperson.
I think the whole delegation.
Okay. Or the delegation. Yes. Thank you. Yes, I would be supportive of that as well.
Yeah, I would support it as well. And I just wanted to publicly thank all of them for attending last night. And I will say, one of the most, I heard one of the most calloused comments that I have ever heard sitting in this seat last night. And it was very disturbing. And I apologize to them for that comment.
Okay, it looks like we have at least 3 to move forward with that. And I would suggest, 4, 5, we're all supportive of that. And working with the committee because they may have some specific language that they would like to include. Thank you, Jordan.
Perfect.
And-
I will bring those back to council for your final consideration.
Yeah, and thanks to all of those citizens that brought forward this issue. Okay, other?
There's a couple more others here for you. So the first one is, we mentioned this, I can't remember if this was last week or the week before, but the Bicycle Pedestrian Access Committee, they are having an event on May 30th from 9 a.m. to noon. And they were hoping that a counselor might be there at the beginning of this event to say a few words. I know originally, I think they had been talking to the chair about potentially speaking. Chair, it sounded like you were out of town and would be unavailable to attend that event. So I just wanted to see if there were any other counselors who might be interested in joining, who might be interested in just saying a couple words about biking and pedestrian access at the top of this event on Friday, May 30th.
Thank you. I forgot to double check if I would actually be back in time for that, but it would be good to identify someone to be a backup to speak. If someone was interested from the council?
Chair, I'd have to check my calendar first. Both this one, my personal, and my council calendar. But I mean, what district? Do you know what district this event is being held?
I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the event starts at the PSC here and then actually goes up northward. So I think most of the route is actually in Councilor Belcott's district.
Okay. Well, I'd be a backup if it starts here, or Councilor Young, since it starts in your district.
No, I would say that I'd be interested in being a part of it, but I am not a huge cyclist. So if there's somebody that has more experience than that, I would be welcome to them making the comments at the event.
I wasn't volunteering because I was a great cyclist. Let's just be clear about that. I don't think that's a requirement.
I
I'd
have
be
other
interested.
obligations, so feel free, anybody.
I'm interested in getting on my bike.
Okay, good.
Your electric bike?
Manual powered for this event.
All right. I think we'll double check our calendars and get back to you right away, Jordan.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Councilor. I'll follow up with you, and also I'll double check, because if we have 3 counselors who are attending, we'll need to make sure we notice this event as well.
Okay.
Okay, and my final other update for you this afternoon is related to BEAD. As the longer tenured counselors will recall, and I think I may have mentioned this to our newer counselors as well, but BEAD stands for Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. This comes out of the Infrastructure and Jobs Act that was passed in 2021, where the federal government sent a whole bunch of money, I want to say like 48 billion or so, to the states for expansion of broadband internet into and underserved areas. The state of Washington is receiving $1.2 billion of that pot of money to be spread out across the state to support broadband expansion. It has been quite a lengthy process. There have been a couple of years of identifying all the and underserved locations across the county, working with different stakeholders. I know Amber has been heavily involved in that process, as have some of our GIS and public works folks. The first round of applications for project areas for deploying broadband internet has wrapped up. And the second round of applications actually just opened yesterday. And so I wanted to give council that heads up. That second round is open for 60 days. There will be a third round happening a little bit later. And then final awards will be made to disperse the funds to actually get broadband internet in the ground and to people's homes, or after the NTIA at the federal level approves the final plan and awards are made, should be in August or September or so. So this has been a lengthy process. We still have a little ways to go. Wanted to give you guys a couple of just numbers of the round 1 of applications. So there were 307 applications for broadband expansion received across the state. 75% of BEAD eligible project areas received at least one bid. And those areas represented 79% of the total broadband serviceable locations across the state. And about half of the project areas received 2 or more bids. And then 63 project areas received preliminary awards in round 1. I did not find in the announcement a list out by county. I'm still kind of digging into some of that information. And I will send that to you all as soon as I have it. So I'm not sure exactly how many preliminary awards were made, if any, in Clark County, but just want to get the word out there that if there are other broadband service providers who are interested in operating in Clark County and submitting a bid on any of the 8 project areas that exist in the county, please do. As many folks applying and as to provide broadband service would be great for Clark County. So just wanted to give you an update on where that process stands, and I'll continue to let you know how it unfolds over the next 6 months or so.
Great. I think we'll all be interested to see how Clark County fares with that. Any other items?
If I could add just one, we did get an update, the OAC on the bridge shelter. I think we have a couple of counselors on the OAC. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
That there was a meeting and a very good discussion on the bridge shelter, and the OAC is fully supportive of the having 2.75 million dedicated to the bridge shelter based on Vancouver's request. There's also, though, the understanding that we still need to have a line item budget, the services provided, and the measurable outcomes before any statement of work could be completed and a contract between Carillon and the city. So I've shared that with the city manager, asking, because at this point, I mean, I think we're still working on the amendment internally on our end, but it looks like it's going full speed ahead, but we'll not be able to share any of those funds until we get everything in alignment with the requirements. And I don't know if any of the counselors who were a part of that discussion has anything to add, but just as an update.
Sure.
Counselor, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good summary. Also, there's just discussion to make sure that it's clear on whether any of the funds can be used for capital projects. The original request from the city was to have a majority of the funding coming from going to capital side as opposed to operating. And so we just wanted to double check that, because if there is a possibility to fund operating, we'd probably like to change the mix, because right now the understanding is that it would be 100% operating.
Yeah,
Sure.
just to,
Chair Marshall, if I could just interrupt really quickly. This is Amanda
Yes.
Michael Brick, the
Yes, please.
prosecuting
Thank
attorney.
you.
To address the issue in regards to the capital expenditures versus operational expenditures, the settlement, the MOU that we signed in regards to the OAC, let me put my camera on here, does state that it can be used for housing support services. So this kind of does come back to that whole question of whether or not this is housing or not, but it can be used for those housing types of purposes under the terms of the contract. So I think the money can be split if you wanted to do operations or capital, just operations. I think those options are there.
if I may add to that conversation, we also discussed that, and I don't think we took an official vote on this, but we did discuss that if we could dedicate to capital expenses, that would lessen the administrative part of things. There's not so much monitoring things that we do, but we also made it very clear that we wanted to have a lot of data come from the city and the results that are coming out of the project as a whole, so that we could see, the effects of the funds being used.
A lingering question I have related to this being if some portion of this is a capital expense, and I have heard, I don't know if it's still the case, that this will be a 10-year investment. So I'm not sure. I'm I'm not sure about the long-term access to this capital investment. Maybe there's more to clear up there. If people understand what I'm even talking about.
Chair Marshall, are you referring to the like a covenant or a restriction on the property that says that it has to be used for a specific purpose for a certain period of time? Is that what you're
Well,
referring to?
It could be, but I thought there with the funds that we give for capital expenses, there is some, yeah, maybe it is whatever restriction. This is not my area of expertise, but there be some that this was an investment that would be a public asset for some length of time.
Yes, and so usually for the contracts that we do for community services, we usually have like a 20-year requirement that it be used for low-income housing and that sort of thing. So that is something that we definitely look for. I don't know, maybe Jordan knows, but I don't know what the term was that the city was offering. I had originally heard a shorter 3 to 4 years, 10 years, maybe that. So that's just a decision that council would have to make if that's agreeable to have a shorter term versus the usual we have 20 plus years for the funds that we get that goes through community services.
Yeah, and Amanda, I was going to touch base with you, but something I had been thinking about as it became possible to use potentially capital funds. I know the opioid settlement dollars have to be used to provide services countywide, and so if dollars were provided for capital support for a building that will exist for 10 years, a question I was curious about was whether we would need to, as you say, have a covenant maybe that access would be available countywide for the duration of
Right.
the project if opioid dollars were used, because they specifically have to be for countywide services. And so that was or whether it could be for a certain number of years. But that is something that a question that came up in my mind as well.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. And it sounds like probably at least have conversations with council about that.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
And just to further clarify for Kathleen and others, I had proposed the original motion and I had intended and actually tried to have a 100% of the 2.75 million coming from the OAC going to capital. It was then that I was told that it's not possible and I switched it to operating. So the intent would be, if we can do it for capital, to go back to 100% of that on that side from OAC going to capital. If everyone's okay with that.
I agree with that. And then I also would like to know, it still seems to me that an interlocal agreement would be simpler and we would be able to spell out the needs that we have. Are we looking into an interlocal agreement as opposed to contracting through Carillon on it?
I thought the last direction from council was to amend the Carillon contract to allow for this to happen the way it's being presented.
Right. Because from my understanding, we had to amend it because the contract stated that all of the funds were going to them for disbursement. That was my understanding of the need for the contract amendment. My intent was never to force it to be, the money to go contractually through
I
Carillon.
think it would be more cost effective to have it through Carillon because they are able to provide those services under the administrative fees where we can't. We would have to, that would cost us money to do that. So I think it's most efficient to go directly with Carillon, who has the expertise in managing this and the dashboards, and because otherwise we have to charge admin fees, in which Carillon can do that.
So
now.
just I'm trying to get that clarified a little bit. So because Carillon takes admin fees as part of the
They're able-
contract. And so we would not be able to do that if we just went interlocal.
We don't have the
agreement?
capacity under the percentage set aside for admin.
It's a limited amount
Yes.
of funds.
Wow, so Carillon
percent or
is
something.
able to do it?
Yes,
but not
because
us?
of their, how many that they manage, it's the scale.
So, and then my next question with the same same thing is, and that was kind of my intent behind looking at capital. To me, it seems like there would be significantly less admin required for capital versus for services.
Okay.
Is that, I don't know if that's accurate or not.
And maybe I shouldn't have brought up, I don't have all that. I just wanted to provide the update to council of, hey, we're still moving ahead and stuff. So there's obviously a lot of things that we're still working through and we'll bring back to
Sure.
council.
And I think
don't
that's
have-
the best way forward, is to just leave it at work between you and the city and then come forward to us with.
Yeah, it'll
But-
probably be Carolyn and us and Carolyn in the city, but we will look at all options to make sure we're doing it the most effective way that's beneficial to the city, the county, and Carolyn.
Thank you.
Most efficient.
Thank you for the good news.
Just try.
And if it does, if it is 100% for capital, I would be curious about the time period commitment and whether or not it's countywide, available countywide. It sounds like that was a requirement.
I would
Yeah.
believe so with opioid, yes, because it has to be countywide.
Okay,
So
so
just for, again, for clarity on direction, if we're able to do the full amount for capital, that's what council wants versus services, if we have that ability under the regulations of the opioid settlement.
Sure. Yes, as long as Vancouver continues to prefer that option,
yeah,
which
it's-
is our understanding.
yeah, that was my understanding too, that was a need that they had for additional capital. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, everybody's clear of where we're going. Great. Okay, Jordan, I think that's all from you. Am I right?
That is correct. That's all I've got for you this week, Council.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Can I
go
ask a
ahead.
clarifying question for Dabbler? Is it true, Jordan, that the injunction hearing is on Monday? And I just want to give if you could give an update on trying to set up that meeting with the commissioner, Public Lands Commissioner, and then I believe Councilor Fuentes and I are going to be visiting the forest to get a tour on Saturday.
Is that with DNR
Yes.
or with the,
With the citizens.
okay,
So my understanding, yes, Counselor, that is correct. My understanding is that the injunction hearing is on Monday, the 24th. That is what I have heard as well. And as far as setting up the meeting, we are working with Commissioner Upthegrove's office to schedule a couple of things. So first, the meeting that we talked about last week with yourself and Chair Marshall and the commissioner, hopefully in the next few weeks here, and then working to get him in front of council later for a work session as well. And then we are also working, as council was interested in hearing from Kevin Tyler and Hunter Decker. Kevin Tyler, our Parks and Lands manager, and then Hunter Decker, who is our county forester, about current county forest management practices. And we are working to ideally schedule that work session with council about what our county folks are doing prior to the meeting that we're getting scheduled with Chair Marshall and Councilor Little with Commissioner Upthegrove, so that everyone on council can kind of hear about what's going on right now. You'll be armed with that information going into the meeting with the commissioner, and then we'll be working to get him back in front of the full council after that as well, so that we can have a full public conversation on that too.
okay.
And I just had a quick question or thought for you. I don't know this, but can you go onto the Dabbler site now that it's been sold?
Yeah, I don't know. We got an invite from we all got an invite from the Tonya, one of the citizen. Yeah, Tanya, and that's the invite that we responded to.
Okay.
So I don't know anything more about where exactly we're going, but I
Right.
believe we're going to see the place where the cut was made.
The property is DNR property. I don't know about
Isn't it? Oh.
the timber has been sold, not the land. And it was transferred to the state.
Public land, right?
It is public land, so I don't know that they have any restrictions
Right.
on access to that land. There have been tours going out there. Thanks for that question. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to our executive session, 9.1, pending litigation, RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, paren little I, for 15 minutes, and that would take us to, let's say 20 till. That would give us a couple minutes to get set up. Okay, and then we'll return. Oh, is there no after action? Thank you. Okay, council has returned from executive session. There's no after action, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned.